Oh, there are so many yummy vegetarian options out there. You could try like lentil soup, veggie burgers, tofu stir fry. The possibilities are endless. Welcome to Spotlight Reads. Tonight, we examine a world where fire is used to erase memory. You see, before the first book is ever burned, a choice has to be made. It's a quiet, personal transaction. Censorship isn't the disease, it's just a symptom. The real disease is the desire for a life without friction, a life without any difficult questions. So the first crime isn't the fire, it's the collective agreement to prefer the warmth of ignorance over the cold, hard light of thought. This is the autopsy of that choice. We'll begin our examination with the agent of this system, the fireman, Guy Montag. His entire identity is built on a foundational lie that he is not a destroyer, but really a custodian of peace. The state doesn't present this work as some grim necessity. No, it's framed as a pleasure, a kind of symphonic performance of destruction. Montag's grin isn't just his own, it's a state-issued mask. He's a conductor, playing all the symphonies of blazing and burning. This is not an act of rage, it's a ritual, a practiced and celebrated part of the social order. And the system's genius is really in its reframing of violence. Firemen aren't criminals, they're janitors. They are, in their own minds, simply cleaning up. By reducing books to mere things, the act gets stripped of all its moral weight. Contradiction, history, complexity, all of it is reclassified as filth, and the fireman's job is just to make the world clean, simple, and sterile. Now, into this sterile environment, an infection is introduced. And it's not a political dissident or some kind of rebel, but something far, far more potent. A girl who just asks questions. The first question is like a logical probe. It targets the central contradiction of Montag's entire existence. Of course, he laughs it off as illegal. That's a reflex taught by the system. But the question bypasses his conditioning. It doesn't accuse, it merely wonders. And in a world like this one, wonder is the most contagious of all diseases. The second question, though, is far more devastating. It's a direct assault on the society's core promise. The entire structure, the book burning, the parlor walls, the constant noise, it's all built to deliver happiness. For someone to even ask this question implies the whole system has failed. It's an inquiry that's more dangerous than any forbidden text, because it forces an internal audit. Montag cries of all the nonsense, but it's too late. The mask has already begun to crack. You see, Clarisse's power isn't really in what she says, but in what she reflects. In a world of torches blazing away until they whiffed out, she is a mirror. She forces Montag to actually see himself for the first time. Not the grinning fireman, but the man underneath, with his innermost trembling thought. Self-reflection, well, that's the system's greatest vulnerability. To truly understand this society's pathology, we now need to turn to a case study. Montag's wife, Mildred. She is, for all intents and purposes, the system's ideal citizen. Her bedroom isn't a living space, it's a tomb. The text is very precise here, a cold, marbled room of a mausoleum, and she, lying on the bed, is described as a body displayed on the lid of a tomb. Her only real connection to the world is through the seashell radios plugged into her ears, an electronic ocean of sound that just carries her away from consciousness. She is alive, but she is not present. The truth of this existence is revealed by the impersonal handymen who come to pump the poison from Mildred's stomach. They're not doctors, they're technicians, and they handle these cases 9 or 10 a night. This isn't a personal tragedy, it's a statistic. It is the predictable outcome of a society engineered for hollow pleasure. The despair is systemic, an epidemic hidden right there in plain sight. This is not about books, it's about a population trained to prefer silence. So, when the conditioning fails, when an anomaly like Clarisse or a doubt like Montag's appears, the state deploys its immune system, the mechanical hound. The hound doesn't hunt with malice, it executes a program. It targets a specific chemical balance, hones in on the source, injects a lethal dose of poison, and then it retires to its kennel. It's just a process, as sterile and efficient as a line of code. It is fear and punishment, automated. Captain Beatty's description is the key. It just functions. The state has outsourced its violence to a machine that cannot feel, cannot question, cannot hesitate. Suspicion is no longer a human decision. It's a technological reflex. The Hound is the perfect enforcer for a society that has chosen to abdicate thought. So we arrive now at the object of all this fear. Why are books the enemy? Well, because they are archives of what it means to be human. The messy, contradictory, complex life that this society has surgically removed from itself. When the old woman chooses to burn with her books, she doesn't just die. She transforms the fire from a tool of sanitation into a candle of martyrdom. Her final words, a quote from history, prove the very point of the books themselves. They carry memory. They connect one human life to another across centuries. And for Montague, this is nothing less than a moral earthquake. The abstract pleasure of burning is gone, replaced by an intimate and unforgettable horror. Montag realizes he didn't just burn things. He burned a person who believed so deeply in the contents of those things that she became one with them. This is the moment the fireman's lie dissolves completely. The fire is no longer outside of him, it is now inside. And finally, we arrive at the consequences. In the ashes of a self-immolated city, we examine the remnants, not of buildings, but of memory itself, and the question of whether a society can ever be rebuilt once it has chosen to forget. The city is destroyed by an enemy and never bothered to understand the inevitable end for a culture that traded awareness for amusement. The foundational logic that led to this ruin is captured perfectly in Beatty's doctrine. A book wasn't just an object, it was a threat, a loaded gun. And in their rush to disarm the minds of their citizens, they left their entire civilization defenseless. This was the social contract that signed the death warrant, the promise of happiness through enforced sameness, a world with no mountains to judge oneself against. In the end, the society that leveled every human peak was itself flattened into rubble by the engines of war, the ultimate equality delivered by bombs. And so, the great project failed. A population crammed with useless facts, feeling a sense of motion without moving, was completely incapable of navigating reality. They had trivia, but no wisdom. Now, outside the dead city, a remnant survives, not as data, but as living memory. Each person is a book, a fragile human archive against the silence. Their task isn't to win a quiz, but to remember what it costs to forget. The society they built wasn't an accident. It was a choice, one made over and over again, to trade the difficult work of thinking for the easy comfort of ignorance. Its destruction was the final receipt for that transaction. The question left lingering in the radioactive dust is not just for them, it is for us. This was Spotlight Reads. Subscribe to Face the Abyss.
Fahrenheit 451 is not about burning books. It is about removing the conditions that make books necessary. This world does not censor through force. It censors through comfort. Discomfort is treated as danger. Complexity is treated as a threat. Fire is not chaos here. Fire is maintenance. It keeps the system clean, quiet, and simple. Ideas are not destroyed because they are false. They are destroyed because they demand attention, patience, and thought. Fahrenheit 451 shows us that the most effective censorship is not the one that bans ideas, but the one that trains people not to want them.